Microsoft says that 95% of their revenue comes from partners. So on today's episode, I'm sitting down with Corey Cummins, Director Regional Partner at Snowflake, to unpack why there has been such a spike in partner-led growth and how to have your revenue functions working in harmony. Corey has experience working at Contently. He was the co-founder and CRO at Realize, CEO at Hurdle, and most recently working with publicly listed cloud data company Snowflake. If you're looking to understand why partner-led growth can truly impact your business for the positive, how to get the most out of your partners, implement it across the business, and navigate the push-pull effect, then this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of Sales Unfiltered. Today I'm joined by Corey Cummins, the Director of Regional Partners at Snowflake. Thanks so much for joining us, Corey.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So today, this is a really different episode. We haven't spoken about partners at all. We're going to be chatting about how revenue functions can work in harmony. Looking back at your career, it seems like you've worked predominantly in a new business sales role, only recently transitioning to partners. What made you take that leap?
Yeah, well, so a lot of my background has been in sales roles. However, I did have my own tech company for about 4 years where I did lead all things around go-to-market, so whether that was sales, marketing, customer success, also help lead the product side of the business. And at Snowflake, I was lucky enough to work on the sales side, leading a team, going after manufacturing and automotive. And the thing that's very interesting about Snowflake is the way that we're built as a business is, even though we have been doing direct sales for a long time, we are a product that's in a vast ecosystem. And so we have all different types of partners, whether that's consultancies that implement it, whether it's the hyperscalers or the cloud companies, whether it's ISV or tech products like data science products or BI tools that integrate. And the thing that really interests me about the partner role was, if you look at any company similar to us, like an AWS, a Salesforce, a ServiceNow, there comes a point where you need your partners to help you scale the business for a couple of reasons. One, you can only hire so many salespeople without it being too expensive. And also two, you need the right partners to help you integrate your products, to help you do strategy, because Snowflake is a very complex product, and you need the consultancies, say like a Deloitte or regional system integrators like an Infinite Lambda or an LEIT Data, to help kind of do the strategy and implementation. So for me, I thought it was really interesting to go to the partner world because in a way it reminded me of building a business, because you kind of sit between multiple aspects of the company. So you work with sales, you work with marketing, you work with the sales engineering team, you work with professional services. And I thought where the partnering ecosystem was, it had a lot of growth. And so to me, I was like, okay, I get to take my sales background, which partnering is a different form of sales, and take my understanding of multiple aspects of the business and trying to really bring that together to help drive the partner ecosystem forward.
So you feel like you're almost more fulfilled in this role from what you did in your previous experience of leading businesses?
I don't know if I'm more fulfilled or anything like that. I think they all have different experiences. So, my business, we got it to 30, 40 employees. We raised a couple £1 million. It was a really interesting experience being at Snowflake, which is one of the fastest growing companies, SaaS companies ever. We had the biggest software IPO in history. And now I think we're at 8,000 or 9,000 employees, maybe. I could be wrong. And I started when we were at 4,000. Maybe we're a little less, but it's a very different experience. So it's fulfillment in a different way. I'm learning a lot of things I didn't know before. And it's really interesting to see how a company at this scale, and also the product that we're selling is very different. We'll sell deals that are anywhere from $1 million to $100 million, $200 million, which is a very different type of sales model than my business. So it's a different learning experience, different type of fulfillment.
You've touched briefly on partnerships and what that means, but for people maybe that are listening that have never heard of partnerships before, if you were able to give it a succinct definition, what would that be?
It's a good question. I think it's because partnering can mean different things depending on the business you're in and what you're selling and who your target market is. But I would say for in the ecosystem that Snowflake plays, which is really the enterprise ecosystem of software sales, I would say it is basically taking the ecosystem that supports and helps push your business forward and creating strategy that can help either implement your product, drive revenue, support sales, and support marketing. So it's how do you really bring these things in to really help push the business forward and to really help support sales and to drive revenue to a business. Now, it can be very different depending on the go-to-market of the business. So depending on if the company is completely partner-led or if it's more direct sales, And also depends on the ecosystem you play in. Snowflake is a very complex ecosystem because there's so many aspects of what we do and who we plug into.
Would you say Snowflake is more direct sales than partners?
So Snowflake started off as more direct sales, definitely. And now I think it's in that evolution of going from direct sales into more of a partnering organization.
Okay.
And it's always interesting because if you start off in a company that's more direct sales led, that hurdle to kind of get the culture to shift takes time for a variety of reasons. But the thing is, though, for Snowflake to go from where we're at now, which is close to $3 billion in revenue, and we want to get to $10 billion in revenue by fiscal year 29, we need our partner ecosystem to really be working at a certain scale and pace. So it is an evolution that's happening now.
I read you wrote a recent article. It seems like you love writing blog posts, which are incredible. If you haven't already gone onto Corey's LinkedIn, you've got some great posts there. And one of them said around founders or leaders of businesses seem to either be product or sales focused, but they're not necessarily taking a long-term vision into account. Do you feel like you're seeing this shift now? As you mentioned, it's gone from Snowflake being more sales-led to partner-led. Do you see that real shift from businesses, especially businesses the size of Snowflake?
It's a good question. I haven't been in many organizations like Snowflake, but Snowflake is in general, even though it's direct sales led, I would say it's actually even more product led. Snowflake's product is, and I'm not saying this because I work at Snowflake. Snowflake's product is one of the best products I've ever seen. It might be the best product I ever sell or work for in my career, which is why it's scaled at such a wildly fast pace, especially given the competitive market we're in. We compete with Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and now we're actually partnering. We're very close with Amazon now. Like, I can't imagine building a business where those are your three main competitors. Like, that's incredible to think about that. And so I think, to answer your question, I think for us, we've always been product led, but we had an amazing direct sell go to market. And now it's how do we take that amazing sales methodology, but really shift it with working better with partners to go and to drive things. Because most people don't know this, but if you look at our revenue when our earnings are released, we don't report revenue until companies consume our product. So we could sell a company a $10 million contract, but if they don't consume the Snowflake credits, we don't count it as revenue.
Interesting.
So our partner ecosystem, especially our system integrators or consultancies or advisories, they are crucial for us to get our product working and get it moving.
Why do you do it like that?
Why do you
not report your revenue unless the customer consumes?
It's a good question. It's something I think, I forgot how many years ago they decided to switch. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago before I joined. I think the reason why they wanted to do it is actually, it's kind of like, I look at it as like, so Salesforce, everybody now takes software as a service and the monthly subscription model as it's normal. But Salesforce was one of the first companies to do it. They're one of the first software as a services, provided in the cloud. You actually now have to sell a product and you have to make sure that people are happy with it because they can now cancel their contract. Before that, companies would sell a 5-10 year contract, and if the product didn't work, it was too bad. And so I think Snowflake is taking the next iteration of that, which is, well, we could sell you $10 million, but then you don't use it, you're not getting value out of the product. So Snowflake was like, well, actually what we want to do is we want our revenue to be consumption based, which is kind of taking what Salesforce did, but taking it a next level up, and which obviously makes it difficult for us. But if you look long term, if we can actually make that work really well, that means that we have clients that actually are utilizing our product and getting value out of it, which also makes it harder for companies to want to stop working with Snowflake.
So when a new client gets onboarded, are you then stepping in as the person leading that partners team alongside the account management and the customer success team? You're all working in conjunction?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I don't do it. I have a team of different levels of partner managers. They have different titles, and this is actually where we're at now, where we need to get to are different. Where we're at now, the way our sales model works or our go-to-market works or when we close businesses. So we have a professional services team, we have our sales team, and our sales team is broken down. We have account executives, we have sales engineers, and then we have partner managers, and we have partner sales engineers. Basically, the difference between the two is my team are, more the partner managers, and then they have a technical counterpart who knows Snowflake in and out, because Snowflake's very technical. And so all these pieces come together to try to drive everything forward. Now, it's something that we're actually working on is how do we really create better kind of, you want to say, harmony per se and how we work together.
It's almost like, the title of this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I didn't even think about that. So yeah. But something that we are trying to figure out is really how do we create a more systematized go-to-market between sales, partnering, and professional services? Because none of our teams are big enough to really do full implementations for our clients. Because, think about it. You sell to, a company like JP Morgan, they're huge. And you have one salesperson, one sales engineer, maybe a couple professional services people. That's not enough to really implement these products. So it is something that we're really trying to evolve and create almost like a racing model on, okay, who owns what's the timing delivery? How do we create joint go-to-market with our partners to really drive these things forward? Because that's their expertise and that's what they get paid to do.
Taking it all the way back, just so that I can truly understand how your role differs to the role of a salesperson. If you were to think about what your day looks like, not doing a day in the life with Corey, but what is that day? Is it just going after as your partners for new business? Is it working with partners who are current clients? Is it a bit of a mix?
Yeah. So the big difference between sales and partnering is, I would say, the big thing, and this is in every business. Well, it's not completely true, but Snowflake is that sales role is your job is to really, you're owning that number. Your job is to close that deal and to really take full control of that process and to make sure that you close it. Where on the partnering team, we're there as, and I hate saying the word support function because we're not, but we're basically there to help work with our partners to drive strategy with them. So that's everything from making sure they understand Snowflake, making sure they understand, how to implement it. How do we best work with our sales team? And then also making sure, how can we also help drive revenue together? And so we're not the ones that are actually closing the deal, but what we're trying to do is, it's almost like the difference between a sales role and a business development role. That's almost how I kind of look at it, where business development is, you're not closing business, but you're creating indirect revenue channels for the business. But the difference with that and partnering, you're also for Snowflake is, okay, how do we also make sure that we're not only helping close business, we're also helping consume Snowflake. So we're not looking at every deal and saying, how do we close that deal today? We're trying to look at earlier and say, okay, how do we drive the go-to-market with our partners to really help us move things forward on a more consistent basis?
So almost like taking a step back and looking at the whole holistic picture of how you can create that whole life cycle instead of just focusing on the now. It's really interesting.
Yeah, like if you were to take, let's take an example of it. So say you were to look at one of the big consultancies. So, and there's many of them. There's Accenture and Cognizant and Deloitte. So what one of my team members will do is, the goal is, and these companies are huge, they'll have 300, 400, 500,000 employees. They're massive. And so we look and say, okay, well, in the UK, if we're going after the financial service industry as an example, it's like, okay, well, who are the key partners that we need to work with? And then who are the companies they work with? Is there any overlap? And then from there, okay, well, how do we determine who we need to work with? How do we train them on Snowflake? How do we then create a joint strategy on going into this account? Because going in and selling to a big financial institution takes time. So how do we build a plan with them, with our sales team, with our professional service team, to go close this business? But then more importantly, how do we make sure that we get them consuming the business? So that's kind of like what we're looking at on a day-to-day basis. There's more to it, but that's kind of like making it as simple as possible.
Sure. I appreciate that. And would you say there's much of a crossover? Because people at the moment are talking a lot about champions, especially in sales roles. Partners, you smirked there. I feel like this is a question you probably get all the time, but partner-led ecosystems are, I would say, probably a bit newer than using the terminology of a champion. So what would you say is the key differentiator?
The key differentiator in what exactly?
Between partners and champions.
So the thing is, actually, funny enough, in a partner, you still have your champions in a partner. Right. So you can still use the same language, because you're like, okay, well, at this company, who are the people that are going to help us push the business forward, or are going to also help push internally for us? Because even though Snowflake's an amazing brand, it actually isn't, not every big consultancy or advisory wants to work with us, because they, these partners or MDs already have relationships with big companies that are driving in millions of revenue for them. So in a way, it's the same thing. For us, we need to go look in a business and say, okay, well, who's a decision maker, who's going to be our champion, who's going to help push us through things internally in the business, and really going to want to almost put their reputation on the line, because a lot of them already have deep relationships with the biggest companies in the world. So why would they switch to Snowflake? So for us, it is a similar methodology. So I would say it is, in my opinion, maybe because I come from a sales background. For me, I think that's actually the approach you should take, because in theory, we are selling to the partner to convince them to want to work with us. Now, some partners want to work with us. Some partners, it takes years.
So Corey, it seems like there's so many good reasons of why partner-led ecosystems are so successful, but why would it, on the flip side, not work for your business?
Yeah, I think when you need to look at who you're selling to, and also, do you have an ecosystem that you plug into? So again, if you look at Snowflake and Salesforce and AWS, even though you have Salesforce as a product and Snowflake as a product, there's a lot of aspects that plug into it. So you want to see, is there an ecosystem that plugs into your product, and is that ecosystem important, or can it help you sell your product, or is it important for you to help implement your product or drive consumption? So there's that part to it. So if you don't have that, then actually it's better just to be a direct selling model. There is also the resell go-to-market as well, where that can be really important, but it also depends. Can you drive enough profit, enough margin for a reseller? But if you don't have that, then a reseller won't lean in, so it's not worth it. And then also, do you also have the culture internally for it? So not all businesses have the culture of, okay, we want to actually work with a partner ecosystem. So if you don't have that culture, and a lot of times, and I understand this, I come from sales, a lot of times salespeople want to take the glory for closing the deal, and they struggle to work with a partner because it's almost letting someone take control of their baby and what they're doing. So I think part of it is culture, part of it is what is your ecosystem, and can you play into that? So I think if you take those things together, if you have that, obviously there's way more to it, but you have those two things, and that will cause it to work. But if you don't have it, then it will never really get off the ground. Yeah,
those are some really good points. So I want to get into how we can implement this into our teams, how we can get our revenue functions working in harmony. You mentioned culture, people not necessarily being bought in. How would you advise people if they were thinking, right, I want to start implementing this into my team? How can they get started?
Yeah, that's a long answer, but I would say,
how long do we have?
I would say the biggest thing is, it's like anything. It's like building a product, building a business. Start small, try to prove it out. So depending on what part of the ecosystem you're playing in, say for Snowflake, we'll start an example. I wasn't there when they launched the partner ecosystem, but say Snowflake was 9 years ago. You go, okay, well, who's going to drive the most, change for us if we were to do some partnering? So maybe it was, at that time, actually, it probably wasn't Amazon, because even though our product is built on top of Amazon, at that time, they probably didn't want to partner with us. So probably actually looking at the consultancies or the system integrators or the advisors and saying, okay, well, let's try to find some boutique advisories, one or two that want to work with us, and try to be really specific and show some wins and show how it's really had a positive impact. Because salespeople usually want to see that it works before they do it. Another way you can do it as well is salespeople do like money. And I know, and incentivization. So you can also create spiffs. So I've seen some companies, which is really interesting. You can give spiffs to your sales team, say, okay, well, if you work with this type of partner or whatever it is, we can give you X amount of money for doing it. So for Snowflake, a great example, we don't actually have this internally, but say that getting consumption is really important. You could say, okay, well, we want to make sure that there's a consultancy or a system integrator on every deal. And so you can create some incentives to change that behavior. So I'd say part of it is showing wins and doing something really small. You don't need to push the whole sales team to do it, because it's like adopting a product. They're not going to do it until they see some wins. And almost internally, you almost want to have like an internal champion in your business that's like, yes, partnering has worked for me. Like, we should look at doing this. And then, money is always a good way.
It seems like there's so many wins, though. I was reading something that said some of the biggest organizations get the majority of their revenue from partners. Microsoft, I think it's 93%. I know we're not anywhere near the size of Microsoft, but Wiser Elite, we have partners. It's probably in a very different way to how you run it at Snowflake, but 80% of our new clients comes through partners. And I just think that the strength of the connection is so important. And it seems like if you're trying to make sure that the client is adopting your product and up for renewal, there's so many reasons of why you should go for this. Is there, for people that are maybe sitting there still a little bit skeptical, is there anything that you can share from your experience of how you've seen it being so successful? Any success stories that you are able to share with us?
So I won't be able to talk about specific customers at Snowflake,
okay.
but I can give examples. So there's a couple ways. So one, so we work very closely with AWS, and the thing about partnering that's really interesting is that a lot of these companies might have really deep relationships or long-standing relationships with companies that you're trying to break into that you don't have. So one, it can help you break into accounts. It can also help you really grow within it. It can also give you all that intel. And so an example of this is we work with a very large automotive manufacturer in the UK. And, for us, one of the things was we needed to be able to, they basically wanted to redo some of their manufacturing plants with different supply chain and different data. And for us, it was one of those things where we were trying to sell into them to start, and it just wasn't moving at the pace we wanted to. And then we work with a very large reseller in the UK, and they already have the relationship, already have the contracts and everything. So the contracts probably would have taken over a year and a half to get done. But with them, it took us a couple of months. So that was one part of the partnering with that company. But then we also were working with a system integrator that was able to, one, have the C-suite relationships that we didn't have. And also they could help build that new kind of like digital supply chain that we don't have the expertise in, and really kind of get it rolling out. So if it wasn't for both of those partners, we might have not closed the deal. And also, or if we did, it would have taken a lot longer to get it done.
Seems like you have this motion that you are working in harmony and you can see the success from it. Bit of a strange question, but when we're looking at working in harmony across our revenue functions, how as a sales leader do you know that you've nailed it?
I think if you were like a chief revenue officer, because usually only chief revenue officers are really owning the whole revenue go-to-market, because obviously sales leaders focus really just on, just the sales side, partnering. I would say in my opinion, there's a couple ways that if you've had, or if you want to call it harmony. It's for me, it's one, are they all kind of working and communicating together? So a lot of times you see marketing will do their own thing, sales will do their own thing, partnering will do their own thing. So you see that you have one complete strategy across the whole revenue function. So you can see that how everything touches each other. Like for me, as I say, revenue is almost like a sequence of events. Now it's not always linear, but if you can see kind of how you go from one end to the other end, which is from bringing a lead in to getting a customer consuming, one, that's a good way to know that things are working in harmony because you can see how it all works. And everybody's also bought into that vision and that process, where you can tell when it's not working in harmony is you can see that people are just doing their own thing. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go close business myself, or I'm going to go drive leads here, or partnering's like, I'm going to go do things here. Now, to bring this all together is very difficult. It's not an easy thing, but also the way to do this is you also need to have the right systems and everything put in place. So you need to have, whether it's Salesforce or whatever tool you want to use, you need to have the right platform in place to understand that what's happening, analyze the data, and to be able to easily report on it. That's also difficult as well. So part of it is mission, vision, business, and then you also need the operating and the efficiency below it to be able to kind of pull that together and make sure that, one, it actually is working together. And then also from there, you can see where there's inefficiencies in your process and what's going on. Now, obviously, there's always things that can't be quantitative. Some of it is qualitative and subjective, but with that kind of methodology, you can bring it together.
Is it Salesforce that you use primarily to communicate within all your teams?
Well, Salesforce at Snowflake is the CRM we use to do all sales activity and things like that. For communication, we use Slack, but for driving sales efficiency, we use Salesforce. For the sales team uses Outreach. We're actually in the process of trying to put in a PLM, so partner life management system to the business to determine, so to make it easier for us to manage our whole partnering ecosystem and our partner kind of, I don't want to call it revenue model, but life cycle. So, but Salesforce is an interesting one because I've used Salesforce a lot of my career. I've implemented it myself. Salesforce can be great. It can also be really bad if not implemented correctly. And if you don't also set up the right systems to make sure that people are implementing things or inputting things in the right way, because Salesforce is as good as the data you put into it.
So you don't actually have a tool that you, for your partner team, specifically use to track the life cycle of a partner at the moment?
So we use Salesforce. Okay. But the thing is, there are tools that are better built for it. Yeah. So we are looking at new tools to kind of enable us to do more kind of sophisticated things with our partner and go-to-market. Because
I can imagine it's quite different to what the sales team would put into the CRM with Salesforce to what you guys are wanting to use. And there's, I guess there's some tech stacks coming out that you can see at the moment that are doing really well. But it's just interesting to see what you use. Corey, you've mentioned how different teams can work in conjunction and all be singing off the same hymn sheet. But let's talk a little bit about partner marketing. How can that help your partner ecosystem?
Yeah, so partner marketing, similar to the way marketing can help sales, partner marketing is very similar, but you take a little bit of a different approach to it. So with partner marketing, there's kind of three aspects to it. So you have to, through, and with partners. So depending on where your business is, like for Snowflake, we're in a very lucky place. A lot of companies want to partner with us. We almost have the opposite problem where we have so many companies who want to partner with us. It's like, so how do we know which ones we really need to kind of dedicate our time to? But so you could look at partner marketing too, which is, okay, we want to get, the regional system integrators or the boutique consultancies to start working with us because we just started our partnering. So you can do marketing to them in the same way that you would do marketing to a company to close business. You could do the same thing for that. You could also do marketing with. So it's like, okay, we're partnering with AWS. So it's like, okay, how do we do marketing with them? So joint go-to-market with them to have a joint message and everything, which then enhances and creates more power to your story. And then you have marketing through, which some of our partners, you can do like partner marketing in a box, which basically is you give them all the assets and things like that they can use to go do marketing on your behalf or, through them. And so with all these together, it really kind of helps. It creates more kind of revenue and drive to the business. Because as I said in the beginning, there comes a point where a business can only hire so many salespeople and things. So the power also of your partners is they have a lot of people in their businesses. And they can really help drive it. So how can you use partner marketing to kind of do the same thing to impact the business?
It's really interesting. It just creates that trickle effect. And that word power just comes to mind, where you're not just going after one person. Like you always say in sales, don't just have one touch point. Make sure that you're really embedded within the business. And with this partner-led marketing, partner ecosystem, you feel like you're bringing everybody together, and then you can actually drive forward as a team. What kind of information are you looking to get out of your partners to make sure that it can be a successful partnership?
So I think it depends on what type of partner it is. Because Snowflake is, as I said, really complex partner ecosystem. So I think for us, if you were to look at our advisory, so one of Snowflake's big thing is we have a kind of a verticalization go-to-market. So what that means is our sales teams are verticalized. So you'll have sellers who just focus on finance, some who focus on healthcare, life sciences. And one of the big things that we're trying to do is, instead of selling Snowflake as a product, we're trying to sell use cases. So what that means is, say you're working with an insurance company that is focused on underwriting risk. It's like, okay, well, instead of selling Snowflake, you go, okay, let's sell, the solution, which is Snowflake's below that. But what we're trying to get out of our consultancies is the information is, one, what expertise do they have on that? What products have they already built like this? And then how can we create a joint solution there so our sales team can go sell it? Now, with say an ISV provider or tech solution that plugs into our product, for us, it's one, can we work with them to build native applications on Snowflake to drive consumption? Also, the big thing is account mapping. That's one of the big things partner managers are doing. So how do we align on accounts and which ones should we go align on? And then also trying to get the right information so we can support our sales team and to go working with that partner to go close business. So I would say those are probably the key things. And then also, especially for the consultancies, is around creating a joint alignment over the next couple of years. So what are they trying to do over the next 3 to 5 years? And obviously the big thing for them is driving services or bums on seats. And how can we really align to that? Because in theory, they don't care about selling Snowflake the way we do. What they care is, how do we drive services revenue attached to Snowflake? So we want to make sure we get enough information from them to help show them how we can help support that initiative.
Yeah. So fascinating. Well, Corey, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing all of your wisdom about this topic. I've definitely learnt so much. But one last question that we end every episode on Sales Unfiltered. What is one challenge that you faced in your life or your career that's really helped get you to where you are today?
Yeah, I would say, even though this is a little bit, still early on in my career, was starting the company that I had, which was about 8 or 9 years ago. And for me, that was an incredible experience and a challenge. Obviously, it was. The thing is when a lot of times when you work in companies, you learn a specific subset of the business. Where starting my company, I had a business partner, but you have to take on a lot of hats and roles until you get big enough to hire people. And so it causes you to learn about marketing and customer success and product. So going into that, I never actually ran a marketing team or built marketing strategies and never ran product. Now, did I do them amazingly well? No, but having that knowledge is incredibly powerful. So now when I go work for a company, you kind of have a more broad, wide lens of how the company works and also how things impact each other. Because a lot of times when you're in your role, you don't understand why someone else is maybe making the decisions they are or how they impact. So why your decisions impact another part of the business. So for me, that was an amazing experience. Learned a lot, and it's something. Starting a business isn't for everyone, but if you have the opportunity to do it, I think it's a great experience.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, why not?
Well, watch out. Corey's business coming maybe 2025?
I don't think so, but
you're like, I need a little bit of a break, please, before I do another one. Well, thank you so much, Corey. Really enjoyed this chat today, and thank you everybody for listening at home. Thanks so much for listening. Check out the channel for more episodes like this one. See you next week.